This is a Stop Playing podcast with Sham and Shaka. I'm Sham.
I'm Shaka. What's going on, Sham?
Shaka! Nothing much. But before you say what's going on with you, I want to say one thing to our listeners.
Okay.
Aloha! Because we got a bunch of listeners in Hawaii.
Aloha to them. And you know what, Sham? There's a hand signal in Hawaii. And it means aloha and what have you. Guess what it's called?
No, tell me.
It's called the Shaka. I'm not playing with you.
That's great.
Ask our listeners in Hawaii.
Hey, Hawaii, is it called the Shaka?
Yep. They will email you, and I promise they'll tell you.
I mean, I could just Google it. But
yeah,
hey, that's kind of cool.
Or you can interact with our listeners. But okay, whichever route you want to take. Whichever.
I mean, Google is our friend. It's that simple. But that's awesome.
Our listeners are our friends too.
I mean, that's awesome though.
Aloha them. Yeah. No, but yeah, this signal is called the Shaka. Seriously.
Dope.
Yeah.
So what's been going on?
Nothing much. Except we have a transition of power. So today's November the 8th, and I'm feeling real good. We have a lot of work to do, and we'll get into it in the episode. But it has been quite the eventful week, hasn't it? Yes. I'm glad we're taping today.
Yep. Definitely we were going to do it this weekend. Friday probably would have been our first choice, but circumstances allowed for us to do it tonight, which ended up to be actually perfect.
It worked out a lot better.
So you remember a couple years ago when we were a fledgling podcast and I went on a Starbucks rant?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's that time of year again. And guess who got her red cup this week?
So it's red cup time. Is that like a season?
Yeah, they do it every year around this time.
So what do you know when the parameters of the season are?
I mean, no, I just happened to be perusing my email.
Okay.
And I saw an email that said that, if you go into Starbucks tomorrow, and that was, I think, Thursday, they were giving out the cup with a holiday drink purchase.
I mean, it's holiday season, though. That's the point.
Yeah.
I always say I love this time of year. So, all right, we it's Sham story time. Let's go.
I mean, it's a short story. Like I was super pressed to get it because remember a couple of years ago I went on that whole rant and I emailed them, sat on the chat, and then got disconnected from the chat, and then it was a whole thing. So I don't remember which episode it was, but it was interesting. So this year I was like, when I saw the email, I was like, well, if I get up at like 5:30 and then just haul over to the Starbucks, I am fairly certain that I will be one of the first few people to get a cup. So I made a concerted effort to set my alarm clock to wake up at 5:30. I had this whole thing planned.
All right. That's my only interruption to laugh. Keep going.
I woke up at 5:30, got in the shower. About 5:45, I tried to place my order. And then I started to get I was mad. Because I was like, wait a minute. See, here we go with this shit again. Y'all just going to do this every time y'all got a red cup. The app just going to stop working. So I was like, whatever. It's down street around the corner. So I was like, let me just drive.
So the app stopped working. It
stopped working. That was the thing that pissed me off last time, remember?
And this is at 6 a.m. No, I remember the whole story. Yes. I just want to make sure the listeners are following. The app did not work at 6 a.m.
It was 5:45.
After you went out your way to wake up to get this cup. All right, keep going.
I'm driving down the road. I'm like, man, if I'm marching there and have to place my order, look, first world problems. I'm gonna be pissed. So I get to the light change.
Be hell to pay. Letters are right.
Get to the next light. Finally, the app starts working. So I place my order through the app, and then I drive around and walk inside. Of course, my drink wasn't done yet because I just placed it. And then the girl handed me my drink. I was like, yeah, so I was supposed to get a free red cup with that, right? She's like, oh, yeah, I totally forgot. Hold on. Then she handed me my cup. So then I went down to the neighborhood adjacent to mine, and there's this food truck there that serves coffee and like sticky buns. They're like famous for their sticky buns. So I rolled up into there. Looks like I was the first customer she had as well. And she's like, "Hey, can I help you?" I'm like, all I keep hearing about is these sticky buns. And she's like, "All right, got one." And I went back in the house, ate my sticky bun, drank my coffee, and went right back to sleep.
Wow. All right. So I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm saving a couple questions. Number one, you got to Starbucks and they didn't have it ready. Now, I understand. You sound pretty understanding about that. My problem is, how many orders did they have queued up for that time in the morning that it wasn't ready? Even if it was like 5 minutes away.
I wasn't 5 minutes away. I was literally less than 30 seconds away. The app didn't actually start working until I was literally steps away from the Starbucks.
All right. So now my next question is, you were still working on the app as you were 30 seconds away from the actual store?
Absolutely. Because I wanted to pay through my app.
which is consistent with your last story, but okay. So, okay, cool.
Yeah. Because if you don't pay through your app, you don't get the rewards and perks and stuff. So it's almost like you just got to do it.
All right. And then on top of that, homegirl told you that she forgot the red cup. What exactly, this kind of reminds me of my DMV story. What exactly else did they have going on that they can forget things in there? I could see if it was like busy. You know what I'm saying?
It wasn't busy, but as I came in and was waiting for them to finish the drink, other people started arriving. So it's not like she didn't have other things. She was the only barista there in that section. So I didn't blame her for that. Okay. And also, they literally just opened. It was the first day. So in her mind, she probably wasn't thinking about the cup because it wasn't part of her normal routine yet.
You've been very understanding. So I assume no letter will be written about this?
Absolutely not. But if I was to write a letter, it would be a nice one.
Positive letter? Mm-hmm. Okay. Look at you. New leaf.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it's not like you've always said you would rather write positive letters.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was nothing to be mad about that.
Okay. Day. I mean, the other wrinkle I remember about the last story is that you ran into a friend of yours and that that you hadn't seen in a while, that even though you hadn't seen each other for a long time, y'all commiserated over y'all inconvenience about this.
Oh yeah, but she walked in and placed her. I was like, no, I don't want to stand in line. I don't want to stand in line for it. This is what apps are for.
So you have your cup?
Yes, I do.
Name correct? Everything?
Yeah.
The other story I remember is that someone drank out of your cup. So I assume that didn't happen this time.
No. I waited and she said my name, and then latte for Sham. Yep. She handed it to me.
Sham, I pay attention to all your stories.
You do?
Yeah. My stories of that ilk used to be like about airlines, but I don't have to fly anymore. So
yeah, a lot of people don't have to fly no more. That's kind of
exactly.
sad.
So I'm not going to be a member of a board, but I thought you were working on being a member of a board of Starbucks. That's not happening?
Yeah, it's not happening. They still do have a COO who is Black and went to Spelman. So I'm charging her with that.
And that will tie into Black women who went to HBCUs, will tie heavily into this episode and into the news.
Boom, boom.
Nah, but listen, the only thing I'll say is the week has been basically uneventful for me. I've been following everything that we are about to talk about. My birthday is November, which is the best month of the entire year. But unlike the last two seasons of the podcast where I'm getting amped up for my birthday and everything's excellent, it'll be tamped down. There'll be nothing, basically. I mean, can't go anywhere. I mean, we could because places open illogically, but I'm not going to do that. So,
man, I spent my birthday alone in a rainstorm.
Yeah, in the middle of summer. So, and July was like a big month of uptick, and the way it's looking right now, in the first few days of November, it's a big uptick. So, you want to tell everybody where they can find us?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're listening, thank you. Continue listening and tell a friend. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast app. Let's see. You can also find us on YouTube, and you can email us at info@stopplayingpodcast.com. You can chop it up with us on Facebook and Instagram at the Stop Playing Podcast, and on Twitter at stop_playing pod. And actually, we have a Twitch page as well, and that's at the Stop Playing Podcast.
I'm just so excited about our actual page.
Our website.
Our website. I want to direct everything back to that. So
www.stopplayingpodcast.com.
Exactly.
And if you get confused and you type in www.thestopplayingpodcast.com, that'll get you there too.
It'll still take you there. And then once you get there, I mean, you got Linktree, you got beautiful images of both me and you and everything that we stand for and all of that. So
excellent.
I'm ready.
And you know what? I got a nice package in the mail. I showed you this DMV hat that I got from @brand on Instagram. Shout out to my homie Boo Britt for putting me on. I got 2 of them, so I'm going to get one for you too. So if you guys are looking for custom hats that relate to your area where you live, look out for @brand on Instagram.
Absolutely. And thank you for that gear. And in general, it looks great on both of us. We always like to shout out the Black business owners and all business owners. Listen, we're all in this together. And we all want to work together. It's a great brand, and I can't wait to wear it. One thing I'll say, Sham, about DMV, real quick. I was about to cut the V off of the DM for real.
Yeah,
when I was looking at that map. When I was looking at that map, the way it was unfolded Tuesday night, but then they circle back around on Wednesday.
Well, you know, since 2008, Virginia has been a blue state consistently. Yeah. So we gotta cut them some slack.
Well, that slack was about to be cut. But as we're about to go into right now, you know, things went one way and then they went another way all week.
Nova came through, and essentially that's what's gonna sell it from now on. Like, it's gonna go by however Nova goes. So that's the most heavily populated area in Virginia. So
yeah. So listen, we've been alluding to it, dancing around it. By the time everyone listens to this episode, they'll really be exhausted with it. So I mean, we're not gonna cover all the nuts and bolts, but I mean, we had the election this week. That's the big news. Yeah. And we have a new president-elect. So here we are, Sunday, November the 8th. We have an official call by all the news agencies. It hasn't actually been certified, which is a whole nother issue. But the election, for all intents and purposes, has been called by all the major media outlets for Joe Biden. So Joe Biden will be our new president in January. So he's the president-elect. So the election is over.
It's a done data.
Yeah. And the fact that we're saying it like this on Sunday the 8th is because the election itself, election day, was on Tuesday, I guess the 3rd? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it took a couple of days to get it sorted out.
And if anybody wants to know why it took so long, blame your local Republican legislature. Because look, there are a lot of states that had never done mail-in or early voting before. Because of the pandemic, they felt like it was a good idea to start this now. But the GOP in those respective states decided that if that was going to happen, mail-ins, I'm saying, that they had to hold them until Tuesday, November 3rd. Exactly. So those states that were lagging behind, counting for days after the election, that's because the Republicans in that state didn't have the wherewithal to say, look, they should start counting them 2 weeks before. And I think they did that because they felt like if they waited till then they could somehow figure out a way to disqualify them. But guess what? That didn't work. So all the complaining that they did this week about how it's not fair and it's fraud and these votes shouldn't count was by their own fault.
Definitely. And to double down on that point, 45 himself specifically told people, don't even, so taking that point to its conclusion, and the outlets that allowed early voting, he told his supporters, don't do that. And we talked about it on the show many times, where he would say, don't trust the mail ballot system. He tried to shut down the post office, basically, and remove, sorting systems and all that. So he did everything possible to interfere with mail-in ballots. And then on top of that, he told his supporters, don't do anything of that sort. Even if you get a mail-in ballot, just show up on election day. There's a myriad of reasons why that's a dumb idea, but the most obvious one is that, just like they're old black and young black and whoever or Democrats who don't show up to vote, they're old Republicans who can't get to the polls in places like Arizona, where they're used to mail-in ballots and voting, but other places where, they're not waiting to election day to cast their ballot. They can't get to the polls.
Yeah.
People think voting suppression only works one way. If you're old and infirm, you can't get to the ballot box on the same day. 45 suppressed his own votes. He was so busy trying to suppress our votes that he suppressed his own. And he suppressed his own to extreme prejudice.
Yep.
With extreme prejudice. And
absolutely.
And that is one of many reasons why he lost this election.
I told as many people as I knew, like, who requested their ballots early, because in Maryland you could do it up to a month early.
Yeah.
Anybody I knew who had the means to do so, I said, don't mail it. Take it to the Board of Elections or take it to the nearest drop box. That way you can just know for certain that it gets where it's supposed to be. Because once he started talking about that slowing down the mail stuff, I was like, don't even rely on it. Just take it there. Obviously it worked out. But yeah. And did you hear that Uber and Lyft was offering like reduced fares on election day?
Absolutely. And that's awesome.
People up. Do round trips for half the price.
Yeah, it's kind of like New Year's Eve where they offer to take people home because they know people are gonna need it. It's the same thing. And Sham, give yourself more credit. Not only did you do what you just said, like in your private life, but on this very podcast, multiple times you stopped the podcast to say, do not rely on mail-in system. Take your ballot to the polls. You said it many times. I'm also proud of you, and I want to say it right here, right now, because I saw you on social media and you used the phrase accurately. She said, cut off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything on the post. I wanted to wait till we got to the podcast. I said, she got it right. How long did that take her? Did she Google
my whole
that?
Life.
I said, did she Google that and erase it and edit it and do all that?
Actually did.
All you had to do was listen to it because you got it 90% right like 2 episodes ago. Nah. But she was like, this is the definition, or not, you ain't say it like that, but you were like, this is cutting off your nose to spite your face. I was like, look at her. Acting like she been saying that the whole time.
I literally did Google it though.
Instead of cutting off your nose to spite your mouth, which was an alternate title for one of our episodes.
Yeah, man.
I was very proud of you. But this is he and a lot of local Republican leaders. Now, statewide and countrywide, the Republicans had a very good election. But there were a lot of Republicans, and 45 himself, that cut off their noses to spite their faces. So
crazy.
Definitely so.
Crazy.
Definitely so. So with 45, I mean, look, we knew what he would do in this election, regardless.
Yeah.
And he's not conceding anytime soon. He's already mounting a legal attack against the results of the election. He has announced starting next week, his lawyers will mount a legal attack. Now, look, once the PR train is already moving. I was told earlier, George W. Bush has contacted Joe Biden. There were very few Republicans, even leading up to today, Sunday, that had contacted him. You and I talked earlier after State of the Union went off today, Sunday, and Jake Tapper had Governor Hogan on. And he was like, look, you and a couple other Republican people are the only Republicans, prominent Republicans, Mitt Romney and a couple other ones, who have contacted Joe Biden and acknowledged that he won the election. Mm-hmm. This is a bad look. Like, who is going to step up? Look, we already know what Donald Trump is going to do, but who's going to step up in the Republican Party and acknowledge the results of the election so that we can have a stable transition? And Governor Hogan was like, look, yeah, I can't tell you. I can't call it. Basically, is what he said. But the point being, we have a situation where 45 is going to challenge this in court. And, I'm not expecting a concession anytime soon. Period.
It's going to have to be sooner rather than later, because these cases and these complaints that they're filing, they don't have any merit. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah. But he doesn't care about that.
Yeah, but, I was discussing this with a family member of mine, and I'm like, obviously, I mean, it's no secret that I come from a legal background. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with plenty of attorneys who, when cases are brought to them, they say, you this is not a winnable case. You don't have any, and they turn them down. I've seen them do it time and time again. Like, it's not always about the money, but for whatever reason, this legal team that he has put together has decided that even though they know clear cut that they're not winnable or even, have any basis, that they're going to go forward with them anyway. That part, I just don't understand.
So you want to hear the funny part about that? I'm glad you brought that up. I've mentioned this movie called Recount on the show a couple of times, and obviously with the proximity of votes, exactly. With the proximity of votes, it's relevant. So, this weekend it was revealed basically. So the president's legal team, quote unquote, is like Rudy Giuliani and a couple of like hack lawyers. In Recount, James Baker, who was an elder statesman in the Republican Party, was a lawyer that went down to Florida and tried the case for Bush versus Gore. Okay. So a lot of comparisons have been made. And basically people were like, look, Rudy Giuliani at this point has gone off the rails. He's not a credible lawyer. So if 45's like legal strategy is to try him out there, this is a kangaroo court. And that point was brought home this weekend, Sham. I know you'll appreciate this. The press conference to announce the strategy of how the president was going to challenge this was supposed to take place at the Four Seasons in Philadelphia. You're already smiling because you know about the story.
No, because I saw SNL and I saw the Weekend Update when she.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Four Seasons, of course, Grand Hotel. Apparently there was a booking error, so it was a Four Seasons of some sort, lowercase f, lowercase s, like on the docks of Philadelphia. Like somewhere, it was a motel basically. It was like a Motel 6 Four Seasons.
You can't even.
They still held the press conference there, even though it had been booked, because they didn't want to look like they made a mistake in booking. This is the kind of like nickel and dime operation that's running here. And that's what Jake Tapper and them were talking about this morning. But it's like, look, you don't have the tools and wherewithal, and even the case in general, number one, but you definitely don't have the troops to execute this strategy. Period.
Yeah. When was the last time Rudy Giuliani actually practiced law? Like, what are you doing?
I mean, Sham, last time I saw Rudy Giuliani, I meant to tell you, I saw Borat 2 this weekend, and that is as ridiculous as you've heard. Yeah, that whole situation. I won't ruin it for you or the listeners, but watch that, and then you'll be like, that man shouldn't be in charge of anything. Much less like, something to do with me.
He was like the face of 9/11, was like Time Magazine Man of the Year. Like
America's Mayor, I believe he was called at one point. He's gone off the rails.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some good stuff.
Let's talk about some. No. Let's talk about some good stuff. Yeah, some results. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so Joe Biden, as you said, is president-elect. Now, both of us had some very strong opinions about Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
He definitely wouldn't have been our candidate per se.
No.
But it ended up working. Like, the candidacy just got stronger and stronger as it got closer to the election. Like, my view of Joe Biden changed tremendously after the Democratic National Convention. So happy that he won. Also, look, Kamala Harris, we were very critical of that pick as his running mate. We've said a lot of things about her, good and bad.
Yeah.
But one thing is absolutely certain is that she is the first female vice president in the history of America, and that should be celebrated. And not only is she the first female, she's the first Black and South Asian. So, I mean, there's representation all around, and she deserves all the praise that she's getting this week for that.
Absolutely. Listen, one of the reasons I'm proud of what we do on the show is because we're transparent. And we stand by. We're not going to make a U-turn because they won the election. I stand by every single thing I've said about Kamala Harris and every single thing we've said about Uncle Joe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And matter of fact, I doubled down on it now that they're actually won and they're in power.
Hello.
Yeah. And you know, that's what gives me, in my opinion, the more high ground on my peers who happen to be on the other side of the ideological aisle, who pretend like, who say one thing, and then when they have a candidate in office who violates those things, pretend like they don't see it. If Kamala Harris or Joe Biden violates anything I've said about them, I will stop supporting them. Point blank, period. And they have the flaws that they have. And I feel like they know that, and they've acknowledged that publicly. Did you see what Uncle Joe, you see his speech where he was like, the African-American community, he pounded the podium.
He did pound the podium.
Yeah, somebody was like, yo, get out there and let the Black people know that you understand that they saved you in this situation. And he did that.
He acknowledged how South Carolina turned everything around for him.
Yeah. Jim Clyburn been a superhero. There have been a few superheroes we'll talk about, but he's been one.
He didn't acknowledge Stacey Abrams, but then again, there was some shade behind that as well in that.
Oh, I don't know that. Is there shade?
Ooh, child.
Oh, break it to me and the family. Let's go.
Oh, so I thought we talked about this. So you know that Stacey Abrams is getting 100% of the credit for
I do know.
The Black vote in Georgia.
Correct.
And look, she does deserve a tremendous amount of credit for rounding up, with some help, 800,000 new registrations and getting those people out to vote. But we did talk about this because I told you Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Okay, the Keisha Lance Bottoms. I thought you meant there was direct shade between Joe Biden.
Oh no.
And that's what I thought you meant.
There was no direct shade there. He just didn't mention her.
Okay.
But he did, as you know, mention.
Yeah, what you're
South
talking
Carolina.
about. Yes, we talked about. Yes.
And so one of the things that Keisha Lance Bottoms said about that was when you renew your license in Georgia, you're automatically registered to vote. So you do that, or you get a new license, or you do anything at the DMV, you're automatically registered to vote. That was one. The second thing she said was she named all of the organizations that helped Stacey Abrams, but she did not name her. And then she said unequivocally that the credit for flipping Georgia was on Joe Biden and Joe Biden alone.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I knew what you were saying, but I'm glad you said it for the listeners because we said we were going to talk about it. And look, we have spent, the Stop Playing podcast has been out in front of this because you and I we almost put a magnifying glass to what exactly Stacey Abrams was doing in this interim. And, you know, a lot of people were saying, okay, well, people were demonizing her for not running for Senate. Well, we didn't demonize her. We just wanted to unpack why she didn't do it. Now, she successfully unpacked why she didn't do it. She said, look, after I didn't win governor, I immediately, and I had been doing it beforehand. So she was also on Sunday morning this morning. So she kind of like went into detail. And she said, look, I've been part of a coalition to get out the, minority vote in Georgia before I ran and as I was running for governor. And then obviously when I ran for governor and everything happened, I still continued it after that. Now, okay, that all of that is true and all of that makes sense. Stacey Abrams was actively on the ground and should get the credit for doing that. She should not, as Keisha Lance Bottoms pointed out, get the sole credit for getting every single black person in Georgia out. Ironically, it was what I was saying that Joe Biden would have a good reason for picking her for governor, which is she is the walking symbol of disenfranchisement in Georgia. Mm-hmm. Okay? She's the walking symbol of that. So she actually still utilized that to his advantage and hers. A lot of people are like, well, if Stacey Abrams asks Joe Biden for something, he should give her what she wants. Okay, I mean, that's fine. If it's a cabinet position, that's fine. That would kind of feed your point. Like, all right, well, maybe she had an agenda the whole time. Who knows? But the point being, it's not like, first of all, he would have won the election without Georgia, but that I'm not discounting flipping Georgia as a state because we need to get these Senate seats flipped. And she did say that earlier. But she had help there and she was part of a movement. She didn't create it. And I mean, she was one of the leaders, but she wasn't like the absolute reason why Georgia flipped. The black people in Georgia had already voted for her in her election and had already registered, like you said. And I think that should be pointed out. But black women in general did save this republic, though, Sham.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I would just go ahead and say that right now. Stacey Abrams is part of it. Keisha Lance Bottoms is part of it. Kamala Harris is part of it. Muriel Bowser here by just trolling 45 and aggravating him is part of it. Everywhere. Y'all saved the republic, as usual.
And apparently Tamika Atkins, Helen Bolter, Nsé Ufot, and Deborah Scott, they all worked with Stacey Abrams to get those votes, get those registered voters. So look, there's a narrative in Georgia that folks aren't happy with, this narrative that Stacey Abrams is the Messiah, and folks are stepping out saying, look, she had help and you need to acknowledge those other people. Right. It's so hilarious.
And give her props. And I love all these memes and images of the black women and like on time, like I love all of it. I'm here for it. Because honestly, Sham, you and I talked about it. It doesn't have to be a subject. It's just a mention. If we're going to talk about percentages, black women still come through with like 95% or whatever, maybe 98, I think, for black women. Black men for Trump. Or no, excuse me. The Democratic against Trump, 88%. 12% of black men voted for Donald Trump.
Yep.
Fellas,
sure did.
On this podcast, I always talk about at the next mail meeting, we need to have a serious talk. What is happening? And 12%? Those are the guys who think 25,000 is generational wealth and don't want that generational wealth taxed.
Those are the guys that's walking around. Those are the guys that's walking around talking about a 94 crime bill that they have never read or researched and heard somebody else talking about.
Exactly. Like, stop it.
Running around talking about a crime bill you ain't read. How you know? What you know about the crime bill? You heard somebody else say it.
Lil Wayne is my age. So in 94, he was 13. That crime bill ain't touch him. Yeah, he worried about his taxes and his money that y'all are feeding. Whatever. Like, don't get me started. So, yeah, trash. But black women, thank you for saving the republic.
And thank you, Philadelphia, for saving the republic.
Philadelphia, and look, Philly for the win.
They came out, was like, nah, bruh. But look, since we talking about Georgia, we're going to have a couple runoffs in addition to a recount. We are.
Aftermath. Sham, you know I'm always about that.
So, look, we've talked about Kelly Loeffler before.
Sham, be glad you weren't in the room with me. Anyone who was around me, every time her face came on that screen about that runoff, I almost threw my remote through that television. She shouldn't even be involved in it. That woman should be in prison.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We both had smoke for that.
Kelly Loeffler. She should be in prison and she shouldn't be involved in the WNBA. I don't know which order you want to put it in, but either one.
But you know what's interesting is the third party candidate, Collins, had like 22% of the vote. So you know what that says to me? And you can take this either way, because Warlock had like 30 something and then Loeffler had like 26.
Mm-hmm.
It says to me that when a third party candidate has 22% of the vote, that means 22% of the people did not want Loeffler back in that office.
Correct.
But you could also look at it like they didn't want Warlock either. But if I had to put money on it, it's more the latter. I mean, I'm sorry, more the first thing.
The former, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll say this: they should have listened to Oprah in our episode, our previous episode.
Oh, he was great, by the way.
He was great, and you know, out of all the great things he said, one of my favorite lines is when we were talking about who we'll talk about in this. Well, I've already talked about it, but Governor Hogan. When we were talking about how you put his father in, or he wrote in his father, it's like, well, you might as well write in Mickey Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're throwing away a vote. You have to understand the context of the election. A third party, I'm not trying to disrespect the third party, but election has to have a winner and a loser, and someone will get into power. So if you're going to go in that booth, this is not the time for empty gestures. We have now social media at this point. So we have less of an excuse than our parents to just make an empty gesture in the voting booth. You want somebody, you want to write in somebody, go on social media and create a page for them. When you go in that voting booth, you are putting in an entry for who should be in power. So when you don't vote, and hey, send your email to me. If you know, I understand. Send your email to me, but don't just write in somebody for no reason just so that you can walk out and say, I don't like either party. Well, you know what? Then you waste everybody's time. I'm sorry. Yeah. Shaka, stopplayingpodcast.com. Boom.
But for what I understand, though, the third party candidate, Doug Collins, was actually a politician. So it's not like he is out of nowhere. Like it was previously, I think he was with the House of Representatives, I want to say. So it's not like he came in without like some type of, you know, experience or cachet or anything like that. So the people knew him. He just didn't run with one of the two main parties. And I think that had he done that, he probably, I mean, I just think, you know, it would have been different. I feel like in that situation, it wasn't just people saying, no, I don't like the other two. Here's a guy we're familiar with. We like his policies and that kind of thing. Well,
okay. Then I have a whole bunch of other problems that I won't get into now. Because it wasted everyone's time is kind of, you know, what I get from that. I'm glad you broke it down to me, so thank you. But I have even more smoke for that than I had in my previous segment. But
yeah,
anyway, yeah,
yep.
So listen, we will have a lame duck period. 45 will completely not cooperate. He won't concede the election. He won't help with any kind of transition, but the election will get certified at some point, and Joe Biden will take office on the 21st of January or 20th, or you know, whichever one of the two. So these next 2 months, Sham, between Twitter and everything else, I feel like it's going to be a little chaotic.
I'm a little disappointed in Twitter though, because I'm like really looking for the Kirk outs, and on the one hand, he hasn't been on there like that, and on the other hand, Twitter has been blocking his tweets. So it's like,
it's coming though. It's coming. He's gonna get that undone, and it's coming. I think around the holiday season, because he's gonna challenge that too, because he wants to get his message out, and it'll come. It'll come. It'll be bad. Speaking of bad, Sham, COVID, quick mention, but we always have to mention we're breaking records in all the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's probably not going to help that between all of the voters coming out to vote in person on Tuesday and then all of the people celebrating Joe Biden's victory, the numbers are probably going to get even more crazy.
125,000 new cases. That was Saturday. It was 120,000 on Friday, 125,000 Saturday. Today, Sunday. I don't know what today will bring, but the point being, we have well surpassed 6 figures a day, and it will most likely continue in that trend from now on. As we enter, as I always like to say to you, there was never a ending of the first wave. So as we enter the second phase of the first wave, yeah, that's where we are. It just has to be mentioned because, part of the election and part of the mail-in ballots was because of the COVID crisis, and now it's getting worse.
I'm sorry. I just read a Trump tweet from today.
Oh,
he says, since when does the lamestream media call our next president will be? We have all learned a lot in the last 2 weeks. They always call it. Like, what are you talking about?
Like, they called it for you.
They call it every 4 years. Like,
they called it for you when you won.
They're like, what are you doing? God. Yeah. But this COVID thing, look. So one of the things that Joe Biden said that when he was elected, which he has been, that he would have a COVID response team. And look, he's ready to announce it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing who's on that team and what the plan is going forward. I mean, it's going to be a little hard because people are out here, acting like, wearing masks is suppressing their freedoms. And B, a lot of people are still going to be angry about the results of the election. I don't know how you corral all that and make a new policy to kind of help rein in COVID, but I'm interested in seeing what that looks like.
Well, one of the things he said in the election, to your point, is, designating a team. Now, we have a supposed team already. However, we've talked about it over the course of a few episodes now. That team is disbanded. Deborah Burks,
trash. And
well, I'll put it this way: it's trash in the sense of they're not a team.
Mm-hmm.
Deborah Burks has gone out on her own and basically like, look, there are a bunch of quacks in here. I need to go out and educate on my own. Uncle Tony was like, look, I'm not. Anthony Fauci's like, I'm not going to be a part of this. So I think hopefully those two people, or at least Anthony Fauci, if nobody else, will be a part of Joe Biden's new team. And it will be a team that feels like they actually have a say in the presence here, as opposed to people like Scott Atlas, who's just a quackpot. But the point is, if you're going to have a team, you need to let them bring in the data and then let that data drive policy. Which this team thought they were, but they weren't.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah,
right.
No. I was gonna ask, but you already beat me to it. Like, what's the over under that Uncle Tony will actually be on that team? But I think based on just how Joe Biden has been speaking in the past few weeks, that he probably will at least ask him to be a part of it.
Ask him. Yeah.
Interestingly, my aunt and I were talking, and I said, Donald Trump has a whole medical doctor in his cabinet, and never once have we heard his opinion on the COVID crisis, or has he been asked his opinion? Now, granted, Ben Carson is a surgeon,
right,
and he doesn't specialize in infectious diseases. But I think it's interesting that he is a whole medical doctor, and we have not heard a peep from him on this COVID thing.
I mean, he's in the wrong department. Yeah, he's out here trying to figure out how to get mortgage-backed securities for the projects. Like, whatever. Yeah, just in the complete wrong line.
It's so
wrong line. Oh, and actually, the only other time you see Ben Carson is when he needs to step up and say real quick, Donald Trump is not racist because, like, I'm here. That's the only other time you see Ben Carson. It's absurd. But yeah, anyway. So crossing that barrier and seeing the cases rise. And look, we know what season we're in, so we knew it would rise, but it's still jarring to see it rise at this rate. We have done nothing to mitigate this whatsoever. Now, hopefully, to your point, as of tomorrow, we have a team that will at least give some direction to the states. The governors are still the governors. The governors actually control the operations on the ground. So Ron DeSantis is still going to be the governor of Florida tomorrow, and he's still an idiot.
That's that BS,
right? Kemp is still the governor of Georgia, still an idiot. But at the same time, you won't have them pandering to a president who they think, for better or for worse, the election is over. So maybe their motivations will change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you hope for. Any other general news? I mean, the election was the news.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much dominated the week. And I'm not as in politics as you are, but when I tell you since Tuesday, today is literally the first day I changed my the TV channel from MSNBC. I feel like I can get back to my regularly scheduled programming.
Actually, before we go to entertainment, Sham, actually, a lot of this was entertainment, right? The coverage of the election is entertainment. Did you hear about Van Jones crying? Van Jones, I've caped for on this podcast.
I don't understand why you've ever caped for this dude.
Because he's smart. He is smart.
He's smart, but he makes excuses for 45. What are you talking about?
Okay, well, I don't know about making excuses. Every time I've seen him, he's gone against him. He did work with him in the sense that he went to the White House and they worked out the crime bill and all that, or I'm sorry, like early release and stuff like that. But I mean, he was crying like a baby earlier. Now, men crying is not bad. Stop playing podcast family.
No, there's nothing wrong with men crying.
I'm not a chauvinist in that sense.
I'm with you on that. There's nothing wrong with a man crying, but this dude,
he was blubbering.
Jesus Christ.
I had people calling me like, what is wrong with Van Jones? Like, what's wrong with him?
Wasn't he the same dude calling out celebrities, asking them why they not doing more?
That was Lemon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was Don Lemon. Same network, though, which you said earlier, which is why you weren't watching it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, all of them CNN.
I'm good on CNN.
Yeah. No, but the coverage over the course of the week, I mean, it was very tedious. Now, they did a good job with the maps and all that. I mean, it's a tedious process, but it has to be done. But I mean, man, you know what, Sham? I went to the BBC towards the end of the week. I like the Brits. They just lay it to you cold. It's not their election anyway, so they're outside observers. It was cool. I was cool with them.
BBC is like that because we get the real from them. They report better on what happens here than we do.
Absolutely.
So the last straw for me, for Van Jones, when he said that Kamala Harris walked out to a Beyonce song.
Right. I saw you post about this.
Bro. It wasn't a Beyonce song.
Right.
It was a Mary J. Blige song. I'm gonna need you to get your life together. Stop acting like you fake woke. Because look, you can't be out here pretending you know stuff when you don't.
Right.
You can't go on national TV and mistake Beyonce for Mary J. Blige or Mary J. Blige for Beyonce. You just can't do it. Like, your black card is being questioned from here on out. But yeah, back to the Bristol, like, the response from all over the world at Joe Biden's win has been like phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Folks are legit happy. Like, people in France was celebrating in the streets, and this wasn't even their election.
They're ready to get them out. They're ready to work with us.
They're ready to get back to normality.
Yeah, we can't work with y'all when you have a clown in charge.
Yeah.
Now we can talk to y'all again.
Yeah, the allies are back.
Yeah. So,
love it.
That's great. So, if there's nothing else, I mean, that's all political and world news we got for tape.
Yeah, let's get into this entertainment.
Get some entertainment. Somber note.
Gosh, man. Like, I hate when we start our entertainment section with an in memoriam.
In memoriam. Yeah, but this is a big one.
This is a big one because we actually talked about this in great detail a few episodes back. So Alex Trebek, the only host ever on Jeopardy, passed away this morning. He lost his battle with pancreatic cancer. And we kind of knew this would happen eventually. Maybe we didn't want it to happen so soon, but pancreatic cancer is one of those things that just no one beats. Just no one beats it.
Percentages are very low.
Very, very low.
Yeah.
So when I saw the news on MSNBC this morning, I immediately got emotional. I broke down into tears. Like I hadn't cried like that over a celebrity since Prince died.
Yeah.
And it just hit home. And, you know, obviously you're going to have your stories, but Alex Trebek was in my household like every day since I was very small. My grandmother and I used to watch it every day. It was always Wheel of Fortune, Passe Jack, and then Jeopardy right after. My grandmother, my great grandmother, my great grandfather, like moments with the three of them just like shouting answers at the TV and them looking at you like, why do you know that? You're like 10, you know, like it's just like it brought me back and it felt like just like a chunk of my childhood was taken away. And, you know, we know that to not be the actual case, but like it just left like such a hole. Like just thinking about on those memories and like how those people aren't here anymore. And then you lose Alex Trebek too. So I just went in an emotional space and it was just rough.
Absolutely. I'll just say this. I don't have a unique story about every single thing you just said was my story. And that's the beauty of the life of Alex Trebek. That's not only your story or my story. Our friend Pete posted something earlier, and basically anybody even remotely our age pretty much has the same story. You can change around the relative or whoever it was, but Jeopardy was appointment television for like our whole generation and our parents or our grandparents or our aunt, and we would all sit there and guess the questions and do all that. And there was a dignity to it. And there was, and then, you know, you always had somebody in your family who thought you were really smart and you should go on the show and whatever.
Never that.
Right. and honestly, I mean, the only wrinkle I have is that I'm sitting in the very room, you know, not to get too into detail, but the point being, my grandmother and I sat in the room I'm sitting in right now, probably 3 feet away from me will be the TV. I've rearranged it, but 3 feet away from me will be the TV. And we would sit there and watch Jeopardy. To your point, that is a part of our childhood. No, that's not a hyperbole. That's not a hyperbole. That's a part, that's a memory of our childhood to sit there and watch TV with our grandparents, but it wasn't just trash TV of some sort. It was this was it. And it was like, it was entertaining, but it was also like a fond memory of, you know, our whether it's parents, grandparents, whatever, reinforcement of us. And, you know, in Pete's case, he was like, man, my grandmother was smarter than me. She was getting all the questions. You know, in my case, my grandmother was sitting there like, you should go on there or whatever. And we've talked about this before. But in general, I mean, he just every day for 30 plus years, clearly, he would just go out and do the same thing every day and would bring an elegance to it. And he was smart. It wasn't just like he was some hack actor. He was like, man, honestly, like you would probably win this show if you were a contestant. Like, yeah. Like, and he had, you know, his own wit and witticism. And it's, you know, he had pancreatic cancer, like you said. We knew this day was coming. he was 80 years old. So his age.
Man, he looked great for 80. Like, you couldn't pay me.
I didn't think he was that old. I mean, I should have. I mean, the math adds up, right?
He had to be old. But
right. The math adds up. It's like, of course he was. But he did, like you say, he didn't look that. But it's, it's just, like you said, it's saying goodbye to a part of our childhood. It really is. In our case. Yeah. People older than ours, that's a contemporary of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Man, and the way that he faced his mortality makes it all the more sad, because he knew it was coming and he never shrunk from it. And honestly, Sham, I said this earlier, and I said this in the previous show. I like the way Jeopardy handled it, with the whole, like, okay, we're going to do a contest and then let somebody else host it, let the winner host it. If you're going to do another host, I guess that's the best way to do it. But I don't think they should have done another host, period.
No, I think Jeopardy should be
They should have tabled that.
By Jeopardy. That's how they should have done it.
And just make another show, trivia, whatever, and keep it moving. And let that go with Alex Trebek.
Yeah, I still can't get into the idea of Drew Carey hosting The Price is Right. That don't even sit right. That's Bob Barker all day.
Now, as I said in our previous episode, and I'm glad you can bring a smile to my face, Alex Trebek didn't do some of the stuff Bob Barker was doing.
I mean, yeah, but to be synonymous with a program, like, it's just.
I agree with you though. There's some things. There's some things.
But yeah,
what about Steve Harvey and Family Feud?
That
guy went Ray, I forget his name, but he wasn't on there.
They had a lot of people. They had Richard Dawson, and then they had the dude that committed suicide. I forgot his name.
That's the guy I'm talking about. That's the guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah, he was good, but and then they had Louis Anderson. It was just like Richard Carnes. They had so many hosts. Like, there's not one.
That was a revolving door.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it was definitely
actually. As a matter of fact, to your point, Steve Harvey might be the most stable host on Family Feud if you want to add up the years. He probably is by a long shot. Actually,
he definitely is at this point. Just like come on, if Pat Sajak ever leaves Wheel of Fortune, what you gonna do with that?
I mean, they need now. Pat Sajak and Alex Trebek are in the same boat. Is Vanna White still on Wheel of Fortune? First of all,
she sure Sam, is.
I promise you, I haven't watched Wheel of Fortune in years.
She's still there.
So Vanna White has to be in her 60s.
She's literally 100 years old and has enough plastic surgery to look like she's 40.
That's crazy. I can't believe Wheel of Fortune even still comes on. But Jeopardy still came on. So there you go. But rest in power to him.
Definitely rest in power.
Rest in power to him. So, yeah, in memoriams are always sad, but we always got to give our props to the people who deserve them. Listen, now, that's reality TV at its highest form. Now, I'm not going to call this reality TV, but these are people who were born out of, like, celebrity gossip and stuff like that. Well, Oprah has been around at that long. So let's start with her. Sham, you sent me this story.
Mm-hmm.
This is a follow-up to, actually it ties into a couple of things we've been talking about. Would you like to lay this one out?
It's not much to say here except that Monique has accused Oprah of contributing to Breonna Taylor's death.
I mean, that statement sounds ridiculous, but that is the story, right? And that's how ridiculous it is. And that's how ridiculous it is. Now, what is Monique's basis for this?
That she put her on the cover of Old Magazine.
Right. So Monique's backwards logic. See, this is the kind of stuff that makes me like not side with Monique in her court case. Because it's like you live in a bizarre world where logic doesn't apply. So how exactly was Oprah responsible for Breonna Taylor's death?
Mm-hmm.
Like how?
And she's responsible for murdering her career.
Now, listen. I'm joking. That was a joke. But, I mean, a tangible case cannot be made there. But the point being, Oprah did not support Monique's erroneous claims, in my opinion. Erroneous.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess she could draw a better string there. But posting about someone after their death doesn't contribute to their death. And I don't know how Monique could even defend that. But to your point, Monique is still mad that Oprah did not like jump out there because this is about Lee Daniels, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what was it? What was the movie?
They did Precious together.
Precious. And Monique, the only reason, see, here's the irony of all this. The only reason Monique, we as Black people would know Monique from the Parkers and all that kind of stuff. But the only reason Monique is known in the general sphere is because of Precious.
Yeah, she won the Oscar.
She won an Academy Award for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which was hooked up by Oprah and Lee Daniels. But there's been ridiculous fallout from that movie ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And so Monique seems to think that her Oscar was inevitable and Lee Daniels and or Oprah like stood in her way to get it.
I don't understand. Why do we keep perpetuating this story that Oprah is trying to hold you back from something? Like Precious was how many years ago? You said that it was Lee and Oprah and even Tyler Perry that had you blackballed from Hollywood. Like, let me tell you something. And people are going to say, well, he's white and this happened. Look, Robert Downey Jr. was blackballed from Hollywood for a minute for his drug problems.
Correct.
He got himself together humbly.
Right.
And now he's in the stratosphere because of all those Marvel movies. Correct. And being Iron Man. Like, you ain't hear him running around blaming people for killing his career and being blackballed and all that stuff. He knew it was because of things that he had done. Now, absolutely. I'm not saying, it's not different for a Black woman, because I'm never going to say that it's the same for a Black woman and a white man. But have a little humility here. Like, this is getting out of control. This is crazy. Like, are you forever, for the rest of your life, going to keep blaming Oprah for your downfall or the things that are not good in your life? Like, this is bringing her up now is even like, okay, I need to just keep bringing up this woman so I can bring attention to myself. And she was on a program with Claudia Jordan, who we mentioned last week with the whole Ice Cube thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what I like about Monique? Anytime someone interviews her, she'll always do something like when she went on Breakfast Club and like accosted Charlamagne for calling a donkey of the day and then completely acted like a donkey on that episode.
Yep. I
was like, he should have did that the next day. Mm-hmm. And that's Monique to me. She's one of those people that be like, she'll go on an interview and be like, for some reason I have this reputation for being difficult to work with. And then we'll show you on that interview why she's difficult to work with. Mm-hmm. And then we'll, in the same breath, say, because I'm a Black woman and this and that. And it's like, well, that's why other Black women are sitting there like, yo, you're giving us a bad name. Because y'all here like acting difficult, acting crazy, and then attributing those like false narratives that come, and I'm like kind of trying to speak for y'all. I should let the Black woman on this podcast speak more. But my point being, yeah, like it's just it makes no sense to me.
And you know who's always right there sitting next to her when she does it?
Her husband.
Yep, Sidney Hicks, her husband. And it's interesting because as I read this, forwarded you that story, and I read the comments underneath it. Somebody was like, somebody should like literally eliminate any woman who is represented by her husband in the business, because these clowns are like Jedi mind tricking these women to do ridiculous stuff. And I gotta say, ever since he took over her career, and he's probably the issue, to be honest, folks don't want to deal with him.
Wouldn't be surprised. And then, sometimes it works the other way too. But to your point, nah. It's kind of like, hey, look, we talked about Kamala Harris. Like, you're a smart woman, but don't have your sister running your campaign. Like, stop. Right. Hope you learn from that. Yeah, nah, but yeah, Monique needs to sit down. She needs to sit all the way down. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with her case, and that's fine. But I mean, I don't support her case, and we've said it on the show. But she needs to sit down. Period.
Yeah. So Dave Chappelle.
Hey, Sham, have you seen SNL yet?
I definitely had to watch it this morning because I was not going to go into this without having actually seen it. I feel like a loser because I forgot all about it last night.
Well,
the only thing people talked about all freaking day after Joe Biden was announced the president-elect, and then I went and forgot about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I saw it on social media, and then also, there was college football on, and even though I haven't really been involved in college football, they put Clemson and Notre Dame on as a primetime game, and those are the top 5 teams in the country. Mm-hmm. And Trevor Lawrence, who we talked about, had gotten COVID. So I wanted to see how that game would play out. And Joe Biden's speech was scheduled for 8:00. So the game was scheduled for 7:30. And during the game, they were like, look, we're going to break out of the game. We're going to cover Joe Biden's speech. If you want to see the game, you can look on USA. So if you don't got basic cable, like, you're short, basically. But during that same process, also, they ran a lot of commercials for SNL. Is where I was going with that. They Saturday Night Live. They ran a lot of commercials for it, and so it kept reminding me that he would be on. And Sham, listen, I mean, you saw it. Okay, so Dave Chappelle was Dave Chappelle. We talked about him. We talked about his last special, and Dave Chappelle has reached a point at this point where his comedy is not like, okay, I'm gonna just give you a bunch of jokes and one-liners. He's gonna draw you in. He's gonna talk about social issues, and then he'll give you a punchline, and it'll be good. But man, it's gonna pack a punch with it. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt. And they let him drop. We can say nigger on this podcast. They let him drop that all night.
And I was actually surprised because generally, that wasn't cable.
No, it was not.
That was broadcast television, and they let him say it. I was just sitting there like, whoa, especially, when he talked about the farmers and in the Zoom meeting, and then he was like,
right.
I was like, whoa. And then he talked about the heroin addicts and then how white people need to holler at and get down with the nigger program. And I was like, whoa. Interestingly, when I posted I commented on your post that I forgot about it, Drew immediately texted me the link for it. So shout out to Drew for that. Mm-hmm. And then we started having a back and forth about it. I said, yo, I cringed. And I'll never get mad at anything that he says because I feel like in comedy, you have those kind of liberties.
Yeah.
Especially a black person talking about niggas. Like a white person, you can't do that. Just remember that.
Yeah.
But there was one moment when I cringed and I was like, yo, that was funny, but people are going to come for him. When he said, we all know why Freddie Mercury got AIDS.
Yo, yeah. Yeah.
I was like, no, that was hilarious, but no.
Yeah. No, it was, he had a couple moments. So it was like, wow, you definitely didn't clear that one.
No. And, after the last comedy special he had, there were articles all over the internet about how he shouldn't have done that. It was awful. He was dry. He wasn't creative. I was like, okay, people are going to kill him. I went online today. There was nothing but praise.
Yeah.
Nothing but praise. I said, huh? Is this the same America I grew up in and I live in?
Yeah, I think to your point, I think some of those people were criticizing, maybe were preoccupied with the election being called. So that's part of it. But no, you're right. I mean, it's like the temperature changes with the political situation as well. Because he's the same Dave Chappelle.
Always.
He was the same guy that that did the last special. And then look, and we talked about that. He did the same thing in the last special they did in the one before, but the one before he was like severely criticized for. Mm-hmm. And then the one immediately after that. And I like that he talked about that. He was like, man, all I've been doing is like all these shows outside. And it was like, yeah, that was basically your last special.
Mm-hmm. 846.
Yeah, 847 or 846. Yeah. The amount of time George Floyd took to be suffocated. But yeah, no, the only thing I shouldn't say I didn't like, but I was expecting it to be like Eddie Murphy, where Eddie Murphy was involved in like the entire episode, essentially. Like there were a couple skits he wasn't in, but like most of the time, Dave Chappelle they gave him a complete blanket like monologue.
And it was long.
From which I understand. I hadn't seen a lot of his other previous shows. Apparently that's what they do for him. Like they'll give him his whole like 10, 15 minutes if you want. So it's a set. Like they just give him a set. But after that, he wasn't really involved in that many skits after that. Like he was involved in a couple skits, and then there was a big break, and then they had the Foo Fighters on there. And then he kind of came on like towards the end. But Eddie Murphy, I felt like was involved. Like there'd be a skit here and there, but like he was involved through the thread of the show.
Mm-hmm. From what I remember, there was only 2 skits that he wasn't involved in. That was the Super Mario Brothers one. And then there was, I can't remember what the other one was, but it was one other one that he wasn't in. But mostly he was in the skits. The one that was, I thought,
think about it differently.
Yeah. The one that I thought was kind of crazy was the one with Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben. And then he came in and he was the Allstate dude.
I mean, I thought that was hilarious, actually. And so did he, because he couldn't stop laughing.
He could not stop laughing. He said, do you see Pete Davidson's lips? He totally broke character.
Yeah.
But it showed me some of Dave Chappelle's range, because I didn't know Dave Chappelle's voice could get that low. So
I thought it was superimposed, but I guess not.
I think it was because the inflections were his. So when he started, he kind of broke out of it a little bit, but he still kept it kind of in that bottom. And I was like, whoa. But he did sound a lot like him. It was crazy.
No, he did. He definitely did.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was laughing hysterically during that skit, actually. Look, I like when a lot of people didn't like when a lot of the other actors used to break character. I know it's not professional, but if the skit is funny and they break a character, that makes it funny.
But they do it all the time, though. It's a live show. You can't control it.
Exactly.
And the other skit that he wasn't in was the Take Me Back skit. When the dude showed up on the doorstep and was trying to... What did you think about that skit, by the way? I was like, yo, this is ridiculous. Like, what is going on here? But it is so indicative of how women are. Like,
you know what? And you're right. I guess both of those skits were very long. So I guess maybe that's why I didn't think that he had as much time, because both of those skits were lengthy.
Yeah.
Because I'll put it this way. They were lengthy to the point I was expecting him to show up in one of them, and he didn't. So yeah. But they were good. It was good. I hadn't watched SNL like that since Eddie Murphy. So
I mean, the same. Like literally, the Eddie Murphy episode was the last one I watched, and also because of COVID, they were off the air. So there was like 4 months that they weren't on. So I watched the Dave Chappelle episode on YouTube. So it kind of just went from skit to skit to skit to skit.
Yeah.
And then after that, there was an Issa Rae episode. There was a Chris Rock episode who looked exactly like Pookie from New Jack City, which is crazy. Because he opened the season. He was episode 1.
I do know I would like to see the Issa Rae episode, actually.
Her monologue was cute because she's not a comedian per se. So I thought she did a decent job. I like that. So I think hers was the 3rd episode of the season. So,
but I would love to see like the skits they had her in too.
Yeah, she did a good job.
All right.
But overall, look, Dave Chappelle was Dave Chappelle. You either love him or you don't. Like, he is who he is, and he's always authentic.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten to the point he does not care. Period.
And it's also gotten to the point where he gets carte blanche. No no one is censoring him. No one's like saying you can't do this, you can't do that. If you hire Dave Chappelle, you know what you're gonna get.
You know what you're getting,
and you keep it moving.
Yep.
So you ready to get into some sports?
Always. All right, so let's get into some sports. We got a good game going on tonight.
Is it good though?
I mean, good in the sense of entertaining. We'll get to that in a moment because a new development, Sham, that you and I both will find hilarious has just taken place. But let's start with the NBA.
I suddenly have a taste for crustaceans.
Exactly. But look, let's start with the NBA. Let's knock some stuff out. The NBA has confirmed they're starting their season on the 22nd of December. We talked about this last episode. What are your thoughts?
Look, that's been the idea that's been floating around that they wanted to start it by Christmas. This is as close as you can get, I suppose. Look. Did you see what I posted on our Instagram? And
yes. So that I wanted it to go right into that. You could go ahead and lay that out if you like.
Your boy Bron says he gonna cherry pick for the first half of the season anyway. Mm-hmm. And that's why he got AD there. I'm like, when I see stuff like this, I'm like, yo. And he said this on his show, The Shop, which airs on Showtime.
Absolutely. He acts like a fool on that show, for the record.
Or does it air on HBO?
No, it's on HBO.
Okay, I said Showtime.
Yeah. It's on HBO.
And I'm like, bro, like the fact that you do and say these things out loud is just like troubling to me. Like, I cannot imagine any like NBA superstar of my youth that would ever say that they are going to cherry pick for part of the season. Like, he has like literally no pride in what he does.
He drops nigga a lot on that show. You notice that?
I've never actually watched the show.
Oh, you never watched it?
No, I just know that quote came from the show.
So let me tell you something about The Shop right now. The Shop is like LeBron James basically throwing away the image he's cultivated, like in the general public, and I mean it's for real supposed to be like, oh, this is how I would act if I would go to barbershop. And they go in a barbershop and they sit around and they just like talk trash. And I mean, he throws the N-word, as a lot of our friends would like to say, but I'll say he says nigga a lot. He had a B on there like last year and all that. Like he has all these people on there and they just talk trash. That's all they do.
Like a barbershop.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's why it's called that. And he does not hold back a lot of times on there. Look, Sham, I'm gonna have an unpopular take, especially with you, but maybe with our fans. I don't have a problem with what LeBron James said, and I know that goes in direct contradiction to what I've said about the NBA season and how I feel about when it should start and when cats should play. I believe I've been on record on a podcast, so I'll say it again. If you're a member of the Los Angeles Lakers or the Miami Heat, you at least have some wherewithal to say, okay, I'd like to start the season a little bit later, if possible, because I at least went all the way to the finals. Everybody else, suit up on December 22nd. Like, suit up. And if you're LeBron James, I think that was hilarious what he said about AD, because that is why he brought him there. So why lie about it? Now, that being said, he was joking. We all know he was joking, right, Sham? Do you not think he was joking?
No, I don't think he was joking.
He is not going to take the first month off of the season. He's not going to do that. Now, I like the sentiment behind it, where, like, if I wanted to, I could and, like, get out my face.
Man, that's some bitch assness.
I understand all that, but he's not going to do that. But the point being, at minimum, he and Miami approached the bubble, came to play. He won the championship. They won the championship. So if you sitting here telling me Tom Brady, who, by the way, we'll get to, gets carte blanche to do stuff, LeBron James just won a championship in a COVID season.
Nobody gets carte blanche to be lazy. I guess that's my point.
How's that lazy?
It is lazy. You're just going to sit back and let somebody else do all the work. But guess what? AD should want one too. That's the thing. Like, okay, if you're going to start the season in December, and this was what was agreed upon, then everybody needs to suit up and play like they playing. Like, if Miami and Los Angeles, rightfully so, I don't think they should be starting in December. I think they should be starting in January, to be honest.
I think they should be starting in December.
Just for the simple fact that they did go into October with the finals. Granted, they're the only two teams that were in the finals. So start the whole season late. So those two teams later, I should say, so those two teams can get the adequate rest. Because there's never going to be a time where everybody's going to get the same amount. Because even if the season had continued, the two teams that were left were always going to have a longer season. Exactly. That's just the way it works.
Exactly.
So that doesn't mean that those two teams get to just play lackadaisical.
He didn't say the teams. He said him. And he feels like he's done more work than everybody else.
Actually, AD should have got the MVP. He did more work. But we already talked about that.
And we talked about it.
Look, LeBreeze, he gets all the respect in the world off the court, but on the court, he's a clown and he's fucking bitch ass.
All right. I believe that's a very clear assessment of your thought process about LeBron James. I'll just say this. I agree with, which is why I think he's joking. He's not going to do that. I'm not going to say he's going to show up game one, because I do think with underneath that joke is a sentiment of like, I'm not going to just go hard out here from the 22nd, but I believe they should start on the 22nd. I don't care about any of these guys. Like, they have 4 months off, and then most of them have had 2 additional months off by the time the season starts. So, I mean, it's disjointed, but suit up. So it's going to be December the 22nd, a 72-game season, Sham. That's the other thing I want to say. How many games it was going to be. I said 66, so I think 72 is a little bit of a push, especially if the goal is to get it in before the Olympics, which start in the middle of July. But, man, that means that they're going to be a marathon of games, which I have zero problem with.
Unless the Olympic schedule starts later. Like, the thing about the Olympics is generally basketball starts immediately.
Yeah.
Unlike some sports that kind of start later in the Olympic schedule. I guess because they have so many qualifying rounds and stuff, which is why it kind of lasts so long. But if they can start those rounds, like maybe later in the Olympic schedule, then it could alleviate some of that pressure and stress. But I mean, it's a worldwide athletic event. I doubt that they're going to be like, oh, the Americans need some time. So we'll see how that plays out.
We will. But I'll put it this way. As far as they're concerned, the Olympics start July the 15th or 18th or something like that, mid-July. And they want it wrapped up before then. If you squeeze in 72 games between December the 22nd and mid-July, that's a marathon. I like it. Let's get it done. And that's 72 games, and including then after that playoffs and all that, I'm good. So I'm really good with the strategy. These dudes have guaranteed contracts out the wazoo. Run them up and down that court and let them hoop. Let's go.
Ladies, if you're trying to be a groupie, holla at the NBA and the baseball players.
Yeah.
Guaranteed all the way.
Yeah. Now, speaking of baseball players, so World Series, look, long story short, Dodgers won the World Series. We've talked through all the ins and outs. The only thing I have to say about the World Series is the controversy about the young man who had the mask, or excuse me, had COVID, and was told to leave the World Series and then came back.
They let him come back?
Well, right. Who let him come back?
Anybody who was in charge.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about Justin Turner, and it was found out over the course of the World Series that he had COVID. The MLB told him specifically, leave the field, basically, and do not come back to the dugout and do not come back to the game. Then this was before the game. Once they won the game, he comes back out and celebrates with them and takes his mask off, Sham. And no, it's unacceptable.
They let him.
Who's they?
The freaking organization. Whoever told him to not come, let him come back. Like, here's the thing.
Major League Baseball told the team not to let him do it.
Exactly. So the team let him do it. And this is where we are. Like, if you knew he wasn't supposed to be there, you didn't have anybody in an authoritative position keep him from returning and being a part of that celebration. So the Dodgers need to be fined for that.
I agree. Justin Turner was supposed to be also suspended for that. They let him off. He wrote a letter apologizing, and they let him skate.
And now they got 5 people who have tested positive.
This is unacceptable to me. Like, as a league, you told the team and the player not to do something. He did it, and everybody gets to walk away because he said he's sorry. No. Like, that's it.
Drew Brees is really feeling himself right now.
Yes, he is. He should be. He thumped Tom. So that's all I had to say. Congratulations to the Dodgers. We were talking about that before.
Yeah, they haven't won since the 80s.
NFL Week 9. Let's go. We're wrapping up a week. Sunday night. We only got one game left tomorrow. The Patriots and the Jets are tomorrow. Sham.
Trash.
That's actually kind of a trash bowl at this point.
Trash bowl part 6.
Yeah. Patriots not looking good. All right. Game that just went off are the Saints and the Buccaneers. Drew Brees just put an absolute pounding on Tom Brady, 38-3.
Then walked off the field with a Steph Curry shimmy.
Yeah. I mean, he dapped up Tom. Gave him some old white.
Gave him a hug.
Yeah, gave him some old white man love. Like, yeah, we both old out here. But all right. So, your birds were off this week?
Absolutely. So we can keep right on going.
But look, NFCs. Let's start there. Interesting. Giants beat the Washington football team.
That was a very close game. Beat them by a field goal.
It was very close. And so the Giants have now swept them. The standings of the NFC East, as we sit right now in November, are 3-4-1. The Eagles still lead it. And everyone else is 2-7. Oh, no, excuse me. I'm sorry. The Washington football team is 2-6. The Cowboys and the Giants are 2-7. That is one of those teams will not only go to the playoffs but host the playoff game.
Cowboys have lost 4 straight games.
Who? Oh yeah, Sham. Should the system be changed?
No.
You know what? I won't touch that answer. It should, because that's absurd.
Why? If you win a division, you get a home game.
If your division is horrible like this one, maybe somebody shouldn't even go to the playoffs, and B, you definitely shouldn't host something.
You should definitely host something. Boost morale.
Yeah, all right. Anyway, all right. Anything else about the NFCs?
They're trash.
Yeah.
And the Eagles will play the Cowboys next week. Cowboys lost to the Steelers today when they really could have broken that win streak. Cowboys were up on the Steelers for most of the game, and they let the Steelers come back. They're afraid of prosperity.
I do like the Cowboys quarterback. I forget his name now, but
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Young guy came in. I feel like I like how he played. And also about the Washington football team, speaking of quarterbacks, Alex Smith played the majority of that game because Kyle Allen, that ankle is broken. And
Garrett Gilbert. Sorry, that's his name.
Garrett Gilbert is the Cowboys guy, right?
Yeah.
And he played well, in my opinion, given all the givens. Mm-hmm. So Alex Smith came in, it played well himself. He threw a couple of interceptions. One of them was totally not his fault. The rest, Washington football team guy tripped on his own back feet, Sham, fell backwards, and let the ball sail right over his head.
The Giants kind of they own the Redskins. Like they literally, if they can win 2 games every year, it's going to be against them. So
yeah,
not surprising there.
So that's where we are. And then, so as far as Cowboys go, the Steelers kind of just played a bad game because the Steelers, the way they've been playing this year, should have absolutely smashed the Cowboys. So anyway, that's that. Moving on to some other games. Actually, I'll kind of go out to the AFC. So just clean up my division right now. My Raiders won. They beat the Chargers. Anthony Lynn, Sham. You want to know some intrigue? Justin Herbert played a very good game against my Raiders. Actually, the Chargers should have won. My defense is trash. Justin Herbert got hurt on a touchdown pass in the fourth quarter. So guess who had to come in the game? Tyrod Taylor. They had to try to get a 2-point conversion, and Tyrod came in. They didn't get it, but it was all the more reason I was sitting there like, Tyrod, don't ever come in for the Chargers ever again.
Hold the clipboard.
Hold the clipboard. Hold the clipboard. But anyway, so we beat them. Kansas City played Carolina. That was a close game. That
was a close game.
Yes, it was. Kansas City skated out of there. Teddy Bridgewater has played well, but they are now, Carolina's in bad shape, actually, schedule-wise. Record-wise. They're, I want to say 3-5.
3-6.
3-6, excuse me. So, not looking good there.
Yeah, when you got the same record as the Falcons, you're trash.
Yeah, Falcons played the Broncos. And to your point, they have the same record as the Falcons. The Falcons won a game to get to that record.
They on a win streak.
Exactly. Raheem Morris out here trying to get that job, Sham.
Consequently, the Panthers are on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah.
Gosh, that sucks for them.
Correct. So Raheem Morris is trying to get that job. A couple other notables. So Packers played 49ers on Thursday. Aaron Rodgers just ran roughshod over. Now, the 49ers had a bunch of COVID exemptions, but that being said, everyone has. So
I think Aaron Rodgers was a little upset about losing to the Vikings last week.
Absolutely. And honestly, 49ers have not looked good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, now, they're suffering.
Yeah, they're suffering. D-Hop, so Romeo Cornell out here won the game. See, Sham, fool's gold. Both him and Raheem. Texans beat Jaguars 27-25.
Yeah, but Jaguars are terrible, though.
They are, but the point is they're racking up wins.
One win.
Look, racking up.
They're on a 1-game win streak.
Romeo Cornell has 2 more wins than Bill O'Brien had this year.
He 2-1.
Yeah, he's 2-1. See, that's what my opening argument is if I'm trying to get the job. Baltimore took care of the Colts. The Colts actually are 5-4. They were 5-3, or excuse me, I'm sorry. They're 5-3 now. They were 5-2 coming into this game. So this was a game between 2 5-2 teams. But the Colts took care of them 24-10.
Ravens are way better than the Colts. They should have won that game.
But the only reason I even mentioned the Colts like that is because I've been talking about the Colts and Frank Reich like they've been having all these horrible or tough losses and all that. No, they hadn't. They actually had a good record.
Yeah,
they still have a good record.
They still do. They can still make the playoffs.
Yeah, very much so. They're a problem. Yeah, that's the point.
Interestingly, before you move on, I was watching First Take this week. You know, they literally were talking about how the Ravens were not a top 5 team. And Stephen A., who I rarely agree with, had to defend the Ravens to a panel of would-be football analysts and try to, what are you saying? Just because they lost to Kansas City and they lost to the Steelers and they're a top 5 team, you do realize there's 30 other teams in the league. What are you saying?
Right. No, I agree with you. You and I talked about this when they first lost to Kansas City. People are treating the Ravens and Lamar Jackson after every loss, it was a fluke last year.
Right.
And it's terrible. The Ravens are a good team. Lamar Jackson is good. There was a reason he won the MVP. and people think, oh, the tape caught on. It's like, that's nonsense.
Nah. If I had to pick
John Harbaugh's a good coach and they're a good team. And he's a good player, period. Like, stop.
Legit, if I had to pick an MVP of the league right now, I don't even know who I would pick.
I would have said Russ before today, so we'll get to that.
I would have said Russ like maybe a month ago.
Yeah, no, I'm still saying Russ. Look, Russ and them made it respectable. Buffalo beat Seattle 44-34, Sham. Seattle decided to come to Buffalo and play Madden with the Bills.
But the Bills are a good team. They're 7-2. So it's not like
correct.
They went into Denver and got beat 44. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and on top of that, you factor in the travel, you factor in the time difference, like all that. Now, Seattle had been beating the hell out of people, regardless of that. But I mean, it's still a factor. Tennessee beat Chicago 24-17. Now, you want to talk about your man Matt Nagy? Ironically, he's 5-3. That might be the hottest 5-3, or excuse me, 5-4 now. That might be the hottest 5-4 seat I've ever seen.
He lost 3 straight games. That's why the seat is hot.
Yeah,
I mean, 3-game losing streak.
People didn't respect him when he was like 5-2. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, you're right. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. Minnesota, Kirkbox out here trying to look. Minnesota's record is 3-5, but 2 of those wins are against Green Bay and Detroit. 2 of those are division wins.
Yeah.
So they beat Detroit today. Matt Patricia, you're 3-5.
Dalvin Cook balled out of control today.
Oh my God, he had like 1,000 yards.
I mean, well, not today, but Thursday.
Yeah,
he had over 200 yards. It was ridiculous.
Over 200 yards. It's absurd. But anyway, so okay. Beyond that, let's see. Dolphins now. Tua has his first start was uneventful statistically for him, but they beat the Rams. Miami beat the Rams last week. Then they come out and play the Cardinals this week. Mm-hmm. He and Kyler Murray basically traded punches.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a great game.
Kyler Murray didn't win, though.
No, he did not. Tua took the victory. So, yeah, good job on both. Both of those teams are doing better than I will definitely do me a couple right now, doing better than I definitely said they could. So,
absolutely. Dolphins, they were in the shit tank as far as I was concerned.
Correct.
And tangentially, speaking of Tua, his brother balled out of control yesterday.
At Maryland? Yeah. Our shadow producer, I watched that game with him, and Kamal was very impressed with little Tua.
Not little Tua, dang.
Okay. What's his name? What's his first name?
Was it Tualia or something like that?
What's his first name?
Talia?
Talia.
Something like that. Yeah. I knew I had an LIA on the end.
Yeah, so he did very well, and they beat Penn State. Which, Sham, if you want to amuse yourself, look up the record for Maryland and Penn State. Then we can come back next episode. You can tell me how significant that record is.
Yeah, I'm good on that. I'm sure it's trash.
It is horrific. So to say that victory is significant is an understatement. Yeah. I'll just put it that way. Like, it was one of those, like, whoa. Like the announcer said it during the game, and it was like, that's not true. I'm gonna look that up right now. Yeah, it was one of those. All right. So beyond that, so Sham, let's get to it. We already talked about the Steelers and the Cowboys. Tonight's game, we talked about it initially, but look, Saints Bucks. So Brees has now swept Tom. They played twice.
Yeah, and it was almost a 40 burger tonight, like
38-3.
Yeesh.
Yikes! Now look, brass sacks. It doesn't mean much except for a tiebreaker. Tampa is still 6-3.
But they have 2 division losses, and the Saints are undefeated in the division.
So the Saints will win this division if both teams continue to play as they've been playing. They have the complete tiebreaker on them. More importantly, though, in my opinion, Tom's been up and down. I mean, 6-3 is 6-3, and Tampa hasn't dreamt about being 6-3 in quite some time. So clearly, Tom is still Tom in that sense. But no, like this is not okay. You can't get your soul handed to you like this, especially by another old QB like this. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, Drew Brees is like, this is my division, bitch.
Exactly.
That's it.
And he has the attitude that I have. You can have 1,000 rings. So what? Yeah, you're not gonna come down here and run shop down here. I run this.
Well,
but
we'll see if that tune changes playoff time.
Yeah, true. All right, so we're the midway point of the season. Most teams bye week has occurred. Some teams will have their bye week hopefully next week, so that we can get to the second half of the season, holiday season, and then end this. But it's been an entertaining season, Sham. My Raiders drove me completely insane today. We have no defense whatsoever. None.
As you've asserted.
Yeah. And I feel like every time I say it, they're like, hold my beer. No, I want to show you what no defense is all about.
Yeah. He gave it away. So there's that.
Yeah. So, but we beat the Chargers, so I'm cool with that. Division 1. I'm good. What you got?
I got nothing. Because this episode is over.
Sham, I was asking people earlier. I said, so can you give me a good jersey number for 85? All right, you coming up empty?
Wait, we this is a tight end number, right?
Yes.
Antonio Gates?
Now, Antonio Gates was the obvious answer. I hate him because he was with the Chargers, but I respect him. He's an awesome candidate. Another one we've talked about in the past, Vernon Davis, local product.
Get the fuck out of here.
Wow. We've talked about him too. We talked about him. And matter of fact, recently, because you were talking about how he was on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, that's why he don't deserve to.
Have you still been following it?
Ocho Cinco, maybe?
That's right. I mean, I was about to say, was Ocho Cinco 85? But I guess that would be the answer. Ocho Cinco, I like that. Yes.
Yeah, let's do that one.
I like that one. But check us out.
I have no respect for sweet feet.
Wow.
Anyway, Thanks for listening to this episode of the Stop Playing Podcast with Sham and Shaka. As always, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And remember, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review because that will push us up higher on the list of available podcasts to listen to. Also, check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Stop Playing Podcast. Also on Twitter at stop_playing pod. Visit us on YouTube and catch some episodes there at our YouTube channel at the Stop Playing Podcast. And also visit us on www.stopplayingpodcast.com to keep up with us. And it also gives you alternate ways to subscribe to our episodes. So like we always say, no double dipping unless it's the podcast. Keep your chips on the plate, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Stop playing.